ask me what the transfer of my military skills were into the successful business, and I always tell it's being comfortable being uncomfortable. You get used to it early on, taking on challenges where you're not really sure how to solve them initially, but you have to apply just basic common sense and stick-to-itiveness. And I mean, I think that's really it, is that in the military you just sort of learn not to quit, and you just sort of go like, well, you see the part where all the thousands of other people have hopped over that wall, so I could probably do it too by just putting my mind and my body to it. It's kind of the same thing in business. I mean, there's thousands of other veterans that have succeeded and are doing great things, and you can look to them and go, I was following just that guy right over the big wall, and that's kind of how it is. And there's tons of people and tons of resources now where you can connect with people, and a lot of people ask me, a lot of questions I get is, how do you start a business? And my tongue-in-cheek answer is go to irs.gov and get a tax ID, then print that out and go to the bank and get a bank account. Because those are the first two things you need, is a federal tax ID and a bank account. Once you have those two things, the rest is kind of gravy, because you can now accept money and pay taxes. So those are the two biggest joys of doing business, right? Revenue and taxes. I started the company in 2006. Won my first prime contract in 2012. Hopefully, with all the information now that they have out, all the P-tax and all the different, it won't take you 6 years to win a federal contract. And the way that everybody's set up now for small businesses, you can call DOD and be like, hey, I'm a small business, and they'll pay you in 14 days now. When I first started, you were lucky if you were getting paid in 60 to 90. And once you were over 90, you could start complaining, but really they didn't care until you were over 90, which makes it harder to pay people when you're first starting out. 2015, we won a large $49 million contract that was national. It was 173 employees. So we grew kind of overnight from about 10 employees to 150. Lost every bid we submitted for the next year, and then in 2017 we started winning again, and we re-put the team together. So lessons yes ma'am.
How do you grow overnight like that? Like what do you do?
So it wasn't overnight, right? So I always tell people, especially in federal, because the natural advice people will tell you in federal is, hey, start as a subcontractor. Right? Go and get a subcontract. And that's great if you know someone at Booz, you know someone at General Dynamics, you know someone at Lockheed that's going to write you a subcontract. If you don't know someone there, you're going to spend the same amount of time getting to know someone at Booz, getting to know someone at Lockheed that's probably not the decision maker, right? And so my theory was like, I can spend time climbing this tree and getting to know someone that could be there next month, could not be there next month. Maybe they're the decision maker, maybe they're not. Or I can start writing proposals, and I know I'm going to get an answer right away from the decision maker, which is, yes, we like you, no, we don't. And so I started winning really small contracts, $49,000, $99,000, $56,000. And I put in here, they were not lucrative and they were hard to manage. Like one contract, I had 2 people that didn't even have to be citizens working at a warehouse in NIST, and I hired one guy that got convicted of murder in like their 50s or something. So, but they were hourly workers, and there was supposed to be a 3-month contract that ended up being 18 months, and it was a huge pain the entire 18 months. But during that time, that revenue that I got from that contract kept me rolling, and it also taught me how to interface with my customer. It taught me how to deal with tough employees. And when you have a 3-month contract, you can't tell the person, hey, I'm handing you a job. You have to tell them, hey, I have a 3-month contract. So you can imagine the type of individual you get that wants a job for 3 months, right? They're not a totally ambitious person. They're a person that's like, okay, whatever, I'll do this. If nothing else better comes along, and typically better things come along. So you have a lot of turnover. So lessons learned, and these apply across business, but especially in federal. Pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. You watch a lot of people's demeanor change once money's on the table. That's why you want to have good paperwork hygiene. You want to have your NDAs. You want to have things in place before there's, things pre-discussed before there's dollars, figures on the table.
Like with staffing, because you'll win a proposal and then you don't have all this staff.
So it depends, right? It depends, because you could win an incumbent contract, and that's what we go after. Is we go after contracts that are staffed, and maybe the incumbent can't bid again because they've grown out of that size standard. Maybe they were an 8A firm and they're no longer an 8A firm. So, or sometimes, for instance, our primary NAICS code is a $15 million NAICS, which means once we've done over $15 million in revenue for 3 years in a row, we won't be able to bid that work anymore as a small business. So a lot of times you're looking for that. Okay, who's had this contract for the last 5 years? Oh, look, they've really grown. They can't bid this contract anymore. First thing we're going to do is call them and say, hey, we're looking at your contract. You should probably team with us. If they don't have a team, or if they don't have a team, you can team with them. If they do have a team, they're going to tell you no. We're going to keep our work, and then you go after it anyway. And people do the same thing to us.
Their staff in a
Yeah.
way? Okay.
Yeah, and people do that to us. Our $49 million contract was just up for recompete, and I had other veteran-owned businesses calling me and offering me very flowery hellos and, oh, is your work on? Oh, is that on the street again? Oh, do you need a teammate? And and I'd say no, and then the next week they'd have their people calling my contractors. Hey, this is the such and such group. We're looking at your contract. Are you happy? And if your contractors are happy, they're going to forward you all those emails and send you all the voicemails so you know who's looking at your work. If they're not happy, they're going to be signing NDAs with those companies and putting their resume in. And we've seen the other side of that. Thankfully, we haven't been on the other side. So be persistent, be prepared, be patient. That's especially true in federal. As you guys have probably seen, stuff takes a long time. In the military, whatever it is, if it's a process, it's going to take a long time. So GovCon is an ultra marathon, and I think business is a marathon. You have to be prepared for the long race. Very few people are Mark Zuckerbergs or Jeff Bezos, but there's a lot of people that have very good lives running small businesses that are really successful that you've never heard about. And you don't have to be a quadrillionaire to live a very great life running a small business that no one's ever heard of. So this is more for federal too, but tell them you told them, and then tell them again. And that's for proposals, right? When you're talking about proposals to government, you want to tell them you told them, tell them again. And then above and beyond, what's going to be your what's going to be your competitive advantage in the marketplace? The former speaker had some really good advice about taking some time to do some research. And I made a joke last week about research is beyond the first page of Google. It's like actually going into some other companies' websites that, are doing what you want to do. Maybe they're doing it better. Maybe they're not doing it as good as you think. But you should know, one thing I always ask somebody is, who's the best in the world at what you want to be? Really. If it's a CEO, who's the best in the world at that? And what does that person do? If it's a trucker, who's the best trucker in the world? And how does he maintain his truck? That's just always good to know. Grow out of space, not into it. I can't tell you how many business owners I've talked to whose overhead and G&A shoots through the roof after they win a decent sized contract, and then they go to get half a floor somewhere, and they spoof it all out, they pimp it out, they have nice, amazing willow rooms and conference rooms and everything set up, but now they're not competitive anymore in the marketplace. So always grow out of space, not into it. Does it make you money? When you start to get employees, they're going to have lots of amazing ideas on how to spend your money. Let's get some pictures of the Capitol and, screens up everywhere and all that kind of stuff. Make payroll, have benefits, then do the TVs and all that other kind of stuff. But have payroll in the bank, at least 3. This is just a good idea. Once you're moving and starting to have revenue. Financing, or easy to get when you don't need it, hard to find when you do. I went and got financing. I did factoring, really before I needed it and really before I could afford it. But 6 months later, when I won a $49 million contract, I didn't have to go through 90 days of due diligence while they were looking through all my stuff and doing my credit and all that stuff. I just walked straight into the bank and was like, hey, I need this much money right away. And they were like, so it seemed like genius, although it was probably luck. Letters of creditworthiness reduce risk. That's especially true in federal. So more recent lesson learned. These first lessons learned, it was through 2012 through 2015. More recently, at the beginning of the year, I got rid of all my consultants. I had probably 11 or 12 consultants, and I replaced them with full-time staff. The reason was because I started to see a huge conflict of interest with consultants that were also trying to grow their business, because they were giving me the advice which was helping them grow their business, but really taking resources from mine. But the thing is that consultants, for a period, they can be what you need, because it's really hard to hire somebody and get rid of them. I would rather be without somebody than with the wrong person. So sometimes a try before you buy type of consultant can give you some perspective on what you do and don't want out of a position, especially an executive position. Develop mentors and mentees. You need to be asking what traps to avoid in the future and be reflecting enough to tell someone coming up where you've avoided mistakes you had known in advance. I have executive coach, psychiatrist, therapist, mentors. I have an advisory board that has 6 people on it that are business owners of similar sized businesses, and you'd be shocked how often we come to the table not having talked for a quarter with the exact same problems. And sometimes they're in different shapes or forms, but it's the same problem. It's a people problem. It's a benefit problem. It's an issue. It's shocking, and it's almost comical. Hire up and ask a ton of questions. People are always shocked when I tell them I hire experts and let them do expert shit, because I'm not the expert. You need to know enough of your business to get it to where it is, and then you need to hand it off to somebody that's actually an expert and then can help you grow it from there. But before that, you need to do every part of your business. And that's kind of, in my summary, is be the best at one good thing, whether it's you're the seller, you're the face of the company, you know the finances, you know the pitch, whatever it is, you need to have that one defining thing that you're the best at in the company. All the other things you need to have a good grasp on. If you're not a finance person, if you don't know QuickBooks, you don't know Excel, there's a ton of online courses that are basic. I mean, they're like 5th grade basic, and I know because I've taken them. So don't be afraid to take something really crazy, stupid, simple, so you can learn a task. That way, when a consultant comes up and is telling you something that doesn't jive with what you think you know, you have the ability to recognize it and then take it somewhere else. And that was always my thing with consultants, was trust but verify. If I had one consultant tell me something, I'm going to take it to another consultant and be like, hey, what is this? Does this jive with you? Does this make sense? Especially if it's not in an area of expertise for me. Learn about every part of your business, and even if I'm not a salesperson, doesn't matter. You need to know the job of the salesperson. You need to know how hard it is to be the salesperson. If you're the person I'm a back office person, you're not going to have sympathy, empathy, or perspective for your salespeople. And if you're not that person, you need to at least have perspective on how hard their job is. Keep learning. This Saturday I leave for Harvard Business School. It's going to be my 3rd year there. I go every year for 3 weeks for this program called Owners, Presidents, Managers. It's an onslaught of information, like 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. But it's given me a lot of different perspective on businesses outside of mine. I mean, there's people making millions of dollars selling hair weaves and Q-tips and tampons. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, the people you meet making, hundreds of millions of dollars doing the craziest things you've ever heard of are there, and they're trying to learn some more about stuff. So, and that goes kind of with finding mentors and mentees. If you're seeking out information, you're going to find other people that are looking to learn too. And hopefully you can meet people that have complementary skills and you guys can teach each other. Because mentoring is kind of about a circular relationship. It's not just you're taking advice from somebody or giving advice from somebody else. And then always stay as close to your customer as possible. I meet with all my customers on every contract. This is like 3 weeks ago was the first contract in 12 years that I didn't go stand up myself. And that's because I was in Guam doing another contract, so I had 2 other people go stand up that contract. So it was bittersweet because I had people to go stand up the contract, but it was the first one I hadn't done in 12 years. So